of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of City of El Cajon planning commissioners, staff planners, and administrative support staff who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the City of El Cajon. Now, therefore, I, Bill Wells, Mayor of the City of El Cajon, together with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 to be Community Planning Month in the City of El Cajon. In conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month, join us in applauding the many valuable contributions made by the City of El Cajon Planning Commission, staff, and partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council.
Mr. Mayor, may I? Mr. Mayor, may I say something?
Sure.
Before you go anywhere, Tony, but you can listen from the audience, I just have to really highlight you and your entire team in community development. I am always impressed with how you and your team are always striving to cut red tape for business owners or homeowners, look for efficiencies, look for ways to work with contractors. I mean, whether it's a large organization that's building a state-of-the-art facility over on Weld, or whether it's a mom and pop shop that's coming in with plans drawn on the back of a napkin. I mean, you guys, those are two real things that you plan for and work with and have encountered. And your team over there is incredible, and I appreciate how you don't treat people like a number. You treat them like individuals, and you know that the quicker they can get through their build, they're saving money, they're saving time. It's bringing more people into the city to do business and revitalize our economy. So I just can't thank you enough. Thank you to the entire team. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. All right. That brings us to agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, staff has no changes to the agenda.
Council? That brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you want to pull any of the consent items? Mr. Goebel does.
Number 10.
Number 10. And staff?
No, sir.
Let's go with number 10 then, Steve. Why don't you
Thank you.
walk us through it?
Question for city staff. I noticed in the staff report that it appears this position is being taken out of the police department's budget and put into the park and rec budget. Is that true?
That is correct.
Okay. And is this a new position in park and rec, or is it an upgraded existing position?
It's not a new position. It's just a transfer of position. We're modifying how the park ranger used to function under the police department. We're transferring that position under Parks and Recreation as a new position under Parks and Rec from PD, and they'll operate with a little bit of a different guide.
Sounds good. Okay. If there's no other comments from my colleagues, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Before you do that, though, I want to ask Jen if we have any speaker cards for consent items.
There are no speaker cards, sir.
Oh, then continue. You have a motion and a second? All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Jen, do we have any speaker cards for public comment?
We received one speaker card from Brenda Hammond.
Hey.
Hi, Graham, Mr. Mitchell. I made it. So Wednesday night I came to the car show, and on the way here I had car trouble. So a vacuum leak or something. I couldn't get out at 25 miles an hour all the way here. So I stopped at the Chaldean Church to let my car cool off for a little bit. And of course, I know some of the people there, and they were very nice, and they let me cool off for a while. So I made it to the car show. Oh, it was great. The dragsters, it was great. The rails. So then I was really tired, so I took a little nap in my car in the PD parking lot. But when I woke up, everybody was gone. So I said, oh my gosh, I need to use the restroom. So I went over to the Chinese Panda Express over there, and they let me go in. So I made it back to Lemon Grove. So today, same thing happened to me. So I stopped at the Chaldean church, and everybody was nice. My car was fine. It was just overheating. It's just hot out there. So I just wanted to say, I can't wait until tomorrow night. I might take the trolley to the van car show tomorrow night. It's right, tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole time that I was checking my car, some of the people at the church were watching me, thinking, hoping I wasn't going to freak out because they already know I won't. So here we have. I'm not going to crack. I took the motor out because the glass breaking was annoying people or scaring people. I know one mayor that hid under her table. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. So thank you for the car show, and I can't wait till concerts start again next year, and can't wait till tomorrow night. I promise I won't drive 20 miles an hour all the way here. Thank you.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Brent, I like that.
I could use a new car.
I like that shirt, Brenda. Go Padres.
You like the socks? The Knights of Columbus gave me these socks.
All right. Any more?
No other speaker cards, sir.
All right, then. There are no written communications, no public hearings on today's agenda. We have 3 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 11 is a report on Stoney's Neighborhood Park. I'll ask Adam Trundo, Director of Parks and Recreation, to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Deputy Director Julie Alon is going to give this report.
Sounds good.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor, Council, staff. My name is Julie Alon. I am the Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation, and I am here today to tell you about some recent improvements to Stoney's Neighborhood Park. First, we have the installation of new adult fitness equipment. We had 8 new pieces of equipment installed, and we strategically put it very close around the fence of the park so parents or caregivers can utilize that equipment and work out while still supervising their children within the park. So it gave a nice intergenerational component to this area. We also have playground resurfacing. So the existing mulch was replaced with rubber tile surfacing. After all the heavy rainfalls and storms that we had just this last winter, so much of the mulch had washed away that we actually had to close the park for a little while. It was unsafe for play. So by adding this rubber tile surfacing, we will avoid that type of situation in the future, and we have a much safer product now for the community. Lastly, we were fortunate to have funding from CDBG to help support this project, and having these additional resources really allowed us to add this great benefit to our nice neighborhood park here. So at this point, the staff's recommendation is for City Council to accept the Stoney's Park Fitness Equipment Project, the Playground Resurfacing Project, and authorize the City Clerk to record a notice of completion. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for the report. Let me go with Michelle.
Hi, nice report. A question, Stoney's Park, if I'm correct, isn't that the one in front of the library?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and according to Google, dogs are allowed?
I don't know if they're allowed right there or not.
Well,
I don't think they
The
are.
only reason why I ask is it does say dogs are allowed here, and so I'm wondering if we need to make sure that that's updated.
As you recall, they're not allowed in the downtown area.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to
And,
say in
and
the
that's
super
something that
block.
we're bringing back to the city council for some discussion. soon.
I'm just saying, because I really quick wanted to make sure where the Stonies was, because I didn't know where it was located, so we need to make sure that that's updated. And that's it. But thank you very much. I did hear that we had put the equipment in there, and I'm glad that we're got more activities available. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, thank you for coming.
you.
I appreciate that. Okay. Are there any speaker cards on this item?
There are no speaker cards, sir.
Okay. All right, any further discussion on this?
I'll make a motion
please.
to adopt the resolution outlined in the staff report, items 1, 2, and 3.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Item 12 is an MOU with MTS for bus shelter and advertising. Director of Public Works Operations, David Richards, will tell us about this.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. How are you?
Good, Dave.
Okay, so today I'm here to present a possible partnership with MTS. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce Mark Olson as well, who's here from MTS. So after the presentation, if you have questions for myself or MTS, they're here to help out with that.
Thanks for coming.
So the proposed partnership, if approved, would allow MTS to advertise on select bus shelter and bench locations within the city and would transition the maintenance responsibilities for these selected locations from the city to MTS. Currently, the city has 162 bus stop locations within the city limits. These bus stops have a variety of furniture ranging from a pole to a bench, to a shelter, to also include trash cans. On average, the city spends about 15 hours a week maintaining the bus stops. The bus stops are cleaned as needed and when we receive requests for service. In addition, the city has a contract with St. Madeleine Sophie Center to empty the trash cans and bus stops, or at the bus stops, I should say, twice a week for an annual cost of $75,000. This is a picture, and I know you can't see it too well, but it identifies some of what I'm going to talk about on the next slide. There are bus stops locations throughout the city. Some are green, some are orange, and some are red, just based off the suitability of each location for this partnership. So MTS and the city have evaluated the 162 locations for the suitability based on whether or not there's enough sidewalk to put a bus shelter on or a bench and the ADA clearance around each location. Of these 162 bus stop locations, 48 are suitable to transition into this program if we proceed based on the dimensions of the sidewalks. 55 locations would require further review and improvement prior to being considered for the program, and an additional 50 locations are not viewed as suitable to host an MTS bus stop or bench based off the physical constraints. So 9 of the locations of these 162 have actually been discontinued. I should note that MTS has expressed that they're ready to transition these 48 bus stop locations as soon as April. So that's good news if we proceed. The 55 other locations identified would require, as I mentioned, some additional attention before they could be transitioned. So the MTS marketing contractor, based on the list of eligible sites for the program, would evaluate the marketing value of our bus stops If transitioned, the bus stops with advertisements can only be located within commercial, multifamily, and industrial areas. So it wouldn't include single-family areas. The types of marketing allowed on the bus shelters and stops is regulated by MTS Board Policy Number 21. The policy prohibits certain types of advertising, including, as you can see on this chart, personal attacks on individuals or groups, political or electoral advertisements, portrayal of violence, nudity, erotic or obscene advertisements, tobacco or firearm advertisements, and profanity. So if approved, the transitioned transit stops would be cleaned and maintained by MTS. That's part of the benefit of this is currently we do that. MTS would clean the MTS-controlled bus shelters 2 times a week and benches once a month. If the conditions warrant more frequent cleaning, MTS would designate that location to be cleaned on a high-frequency basis of up to 3 or 4 times per week. In addition, MTS would pressure wash each of its bus shelters once a month, or more frequently as needed. Damaged MTS equipment would be repaired or replaced within 48 hours. In addition, graffiti would be removed within 24 hours of being noticed or reported. So the California Transportation Development Act, known as TDA, provides funding for transportation projects and operations. The funds come from a statewide 0.25% general sales tax and sales tax on diesel fuel. These funds are redistributed to regional transportation agencies. In our case, that's SANDAG. SANDAG then reallocates these funds to eligible transportation projects and agencies. MTS receives some of these funds, which again are redistributed, and ultimately that's how El Cajon receives funds of approximately $140,000 annually to use towards maintaining bus stops within the city. Signing the MOU would not increase or decrease the city's access to these TDA funds. The city will continue to utilize these funds to maintain the city's remaining bus stops throughout the city. So there's several benefits and drawbacks to consider with regards to signing the MOU with MTS. Benefits include transferring ownership of the bus shelters and benches to MTS, at least the ones that are transitioned into their program, relieving the city from maintaining certain bus stops, updating bus shelter benches or shelters and benches with new modern furniture, allowing the city to increase funding for maintaining bus shelters that are not transitioned to MTS, and reducing the city's liability associated with owning and controlling bus stops. Some drawbacks obviously include potential clutter from advertising, and then we may receive complaints from our residents about advertising that they may not like. If the proposed MOU is approved, MTS would evaluate and propose prospective sites, or I should say their marketing contractor would, and then those sites would be transitioned over time. The city would have the right to review and reject proposed sites. If a location is approved, the city would then remove our equipment, and then MTS would come in and install their equipment behind us. The MOU with MTS would have an initial term of 10 years and continue annually thereafter unless the agreement is terminated by either party. The city would have the right to terminate the agreement with 365 days written notice to MTS. And then finally, MTS would have an exclusive advertising rights in El Cajon to advertise on bus shelters and benches. If approved, the MOU with MTS does not increase or decrease the city's access to TDA funds. We anticipate that over time, as more bus stops transition to MTS, there could potentially be a decrease in the need to use TDA funds. As we see it right now, there's probably more of a need to increase the cleaning schedule at some of our existing bus stops. So that would more likely be the case. There are no ongoing costs associated with the MOU, and then advertising revenue generated from the program will be used by MTS to purchase new bus shelter equipment, pay for some of those maintenance costs, and transit-oriented costs. In conclusion, this potential partnership with MTS would allow MTS to advertise on select bus stops and benches and shelters, while transferring and cleaning the maintenance of these bus stops to MTS. So staff recommends at this time that the City Council adopt a resolution to authorize the City Manager to execute an agreement with MTS regarding bus shelter and bench advertising, installation, and maintenance. That concludes my formal presentation, and I'm available for any questions, and I believe Mark's here as well to help answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thanks. Let me see if there's questions.
Actually, I have a question for Mark. How many cities in San Diego County have this arrangement?
Well, within our jurisdiction right now, we have 7, and the county of San Diego. So 7 cities plus the county of San Diego.
Do you know what those cities are?
Yeah, it's the ones that don't are Poway and Coronado, and the city of El Cajon right now. So all the others. So it's if you go La Mesa, Lemon Grove are 2 recent ones that just came on to our program. Imperial Beach, Chula Vistas, and National City. City of San Diego is the biggest one. They have about 90% of the entire furniture inventory, and maybe I'm missing one in there in Santee as well. So,
and then will it be made so that people can't sleep on the benches? Is there a barrier to that?
The biggest barrier is that the benches themselves have partitions between the seats, so somebody can't lie down on it, or makes it really uncomfortable as well. And that's something where we'd work closely with the city of El Cajon. If there's a problem area that we have, we could send some of our security officers out there to help with the cleaning crews if cleaning needs to take place, maintenance needs to take place, to try to discourage that type of behavior on our system.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark. So how does the public notify MTS that bus stops need help?
We have a customer service center that they can call anytime. We also have an online form that they can fill out and place a comment that way. Those are the 2 easiest ways. People can also call our security team 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Depending on the level of emergency, that'll either get referred to customer service or we'll send a team out to respond. We have a bus enforcement team that just specializes in the bus system that would probably be called out for some type of elevated security concern.
We would probably ask MTS to provide a web page with the information you just described, because our own internal city app that we use for reporting graffiti and debris and things is very popular. And if that could just have a menu item that just forwards to your page, that would be super.
Yeah, absolutely. We can work with you on that type of communication. For sure.
Thank you.
Going back to the benches that my colleague mentioned, sometimes those of us who, as we get older and we tend to take a little bit more space on benches, these benches that have the partitions in don't quite accommodate that size. Is it possible, are they just small partitions like this, or are they, to accommodate a more ample backside?
Well, that's a very good point, and I think that's something that we can look at with the design of them. Right now, we just hired a company called Tolar, which produces our current benches and shelters, and so that's a design that we can look at. I don't know the exact specs on the inches between the partitions, but that's certainly something that we can look into.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm just trying to be realistic and looking out for, residents. Not everybody is skinny, and if we don't walk very much and we're taking public transportation and we have to wait and we need to sit, I know that I would be pressed to sit in a very small space, and so I'm looking out for my fellow residents who are in the same position. So thank you for that.
Question for the city attorney. Now, it was mentioned that there would be less liability for the city. If someone gets hurt there, don't they sue like the city and the bus company, and then would the bus bench company indemnify us?
Well, thank you, Mr. Kendrick. The nature of this transaction is that MTS would take full responsibility of their stations, those that they own. Not all of them will be owned by them. Presently, we own all of them. And so the transition would be to eventually move as many as we can to MTS. So they'll take on that responsibility. Notwithstanding Mr. Richard's reference to this as a partnership, it is not a partnership except in the colloquial sense. This is not a legal partnership between the city and MTS. In fact, we may be changing the description of it to an agreement, but we'll see. We're still in discussions. I'm still in discussions with their general counsel. She's been very cooperative in trying to get things put together. We hustled to get this on this agenda, and there are just a little few changes that we'll be needing to make, including making the agreement a license as well, a master license, so that MTS will have that ability to occupy the spaces that we can update as time goes on. When they start adding more stations, more benches and shelters, we would make that list, amend that list to include that within the license. So that's why the resolution allows, and the recommendation asks for the council to approve this, allowing the city manager to make changes that he believes are necessary in order to meet the goals and objectives of this program.
Great, thank you.
Quick question. What is staff recommending that we sign or create this agreement with all 162 areas, or sorry, what's the recommendation there?
So the recommendation would be to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement or other form of an agreement with MTS. The actual implementation or transition of bus stops would incorporate the 48 initially that are ready to be transitioned, and then additional stops as we go. They're likely, and MTS can correct me if I'm wrong, but there will likely be some maintenance for the city to retain in perpetuity. So it's not like a complete handoff. It's just as stops are added into the program, those will transition.
And do we know, timelines with regard to, we do the initial 48, the other 105 or so? Was that a month-long process? Is that a year-long process for transition? Any idea?
I would say in our experience, it'll take a little bit longer than a month. I would say maybe 6 to 8 to 12 months, depending on the level of work that needs to be done in the infrastructure on city sidewalks and building, making sure it's ADA accessible and things like that. Okay. So it just depends on how quickly we can work with the city to get the permitting and the construction done on certain sites.
Got it. Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Ortiz, I might want to clarify that
Please.
Not every one of those stops is suitable for a bench or a shelter or anything other than perhaps a trash can or a post.
Right.
So with those that are only suitable for those types of uses, the smaller uses, is MTS puts up their post with their sign on it, but that's it. We don't have any furniture, so to speak, for people to use at those stops. And it's critical because some of those are located where people can't get to that site if there were to be a bench or a seat. It would, as the speaker said, there are ADA requirements that could be compromised if we put facilities on some of those locations. So we're just not going to get them in all of the 162 spots.
Okay, so not all 162 of these sites, even if we did transition over to MTS, are not going to get some of these benches and coverings and things like that. That's
very,
helpful.
very unlikely.
Very unlikely. Okay, thank you.
What about alcohol advertising? How important is that to MTS?
Well, currently our policy allows for alcohol advertising. It's very infrequent on our system. One of the things that we can do, and we've talked to staff about this, was exclude the entire city of El Cajon from alcohol advertising with our advertising partner. So basically, they already have a running list of locations they cannot do alcohol advertising near, like schools, places of worship, child care centers, things like that. So they can't put any alcohol advertising 500 feet from those types of locations throughout our entire network. What we could do is add the entire city of El Cajon to that network as well. In addition to that, El Cajon is very attractive for a lot of reasons. Alcohol advertising in our system probably isn't one of them. They mainly focus on entertainment districts like the Gaslamp Quarter, Pacific Beach, Mission Beach, and that's where those types of advertisers like to do their business on our system.
How about marijuana?
That is not allowed in our policy.
Okay.
So I'd just like to ask my colleagues how they feel about
I'd like to not have alcohol advertising.
not having alcohol advertising.
That makes sense to me. El Cajon already has a concentration of liquor stores for off-sale things, enough that we don't add new ones. The state has said you're full. So, and with a combination of other things such as other things, we just don't want to make alcohol a part of the promotion here in El Cajon to people who are disadvantaged or down on their luck sometimes. It's not the same experience as a downtown entertainment district.
Right. And I think that's something that we can certainly do with city staff and work at that level on it, if that's okay with the council. I think it's not an issue for us at all.
That'd be wonderful.
All right. Any other questions? Thanks. You've been very informative. I appreciate it. Let me see if there's any speaker cards on this item.
There are no speaker cards, sir.
All right. So it's back to the council. I think we've kind of hashed it out, but go ahead, Steve.
Some comments. So 48 stops out of 160 are ready to go. That's a third. And that's a third. Great. 55, which gets it up to nearly two-thirds, would be on the list. The key here is we still get the $140,000 of TDA allowance. You would expect if you give up the responsibility of somebody else, you would give up some of the funding for that. But miraculously, we get to keep that $140,000. I think, or we get to have access to the $140,000. It's a reimbursement model. I think it is important for us going forward. The reason why I brought this forward last fall, I think it was, or earlier this year, is it's just not happening. The cleanliness of our bus stops can be better in terms of power washing, which we don't have except on an on-request basis. The trash, I am surprised that it's serviced twice a week because it overflows for that. So with the money that we still have available, I think, and less spots to do it, I really think we should contract out with a power washer. We're leaving money on the table. We only use $75,000 of $140,000, and the cleanliness of the city is at stake when we leave money at the table. So I bet my colleagues would agree, let's go for those power wash, let's go for those good, clean things if we have a $140,000 allowance we're not even using today. I appreciate MTS being interested in this. There are 4,900 bus stops across the system. These are 162 of them, but we want these to be the 162 best out of the 4,900. So thanks for your participation.
All right, any other thoughts?
Just one thought, and this may be a little bit out of the box, but in case we have a problem at a particular location with the homeless sleeping there or hanging out, could we have an option to put up speakers where they have the, Baroque music playing where it's going to drive someone crazy after 2 hours?
We have that we have that option now. The challenge is the technology, right? And so when we've installed similar systems around the city, they typically get vandalized pretty quickly. So having the ability to transmit the sound there, or having an iPad or iPod player, that's the limitation. On the MTS, I'm going to assume that's probably not an option, but on the ones that we control, we have that ability to do that.
Okay.
I should also note 21 bus stops that don't have a shelter today are in the group of 48 who would get a shelter right away. So people who are waiting at 21 stops in the heat today will have shelter perhaps a year from today.
Okay, somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and move that we accept the next resolution in order authorizing the city to execute an MOU with MTS and with any such changes as refinements as may be approved by the city manager.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't ask. Did I ask if there were any speaker cards on this item?
Yes, there's no speaker cards.
Okay. All right. Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay. There are no commissioner reports on today's agenda. Item 14 is my activities report, which is as reported.
Mayor, we have item 13.
Did I miss something? Thank you. I overshot it. Okay. The last administrative report, item 13, is a report to consider an amendment to the downtown master plan, and our assistant city manager, Mr. Vince DiMaggio, will tell us about this.
You know, there's a game tonight, so I'll keep it short. I know you're anxious to. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. In March 2024, as you recall, council received a presentation from New Cities America identifying 12 suggested changes to various operations in order to make the PBID more effective. One of those changes was a suggested zoning code amendment to allow bar-only on-sale establishments in the PBID area. The limitation of bar-only establishments goes back to a zoning code change from 1995 when the City Council added distance regulations to new bar-only establishments, requiring a 1,000-foot separation from existing bar establishments, along with 600-foot distance requirements from schools, residential uses, religious uses, and other sensitive uses. These distance requirements essentially zoned out new bars in the downtown area. Presently, restaurants that have a bar area smaller than the dining area are allowed with a conditional use permit, as are microbreweries, which are, of course, establishments that manufacture the beer on site. Additionally, on-sale alcohol beverage uses are allowed when the bar use is secondary to the principal permitted use. For example, the Marriott has a bar and the Magnolia has a bar. Clearly, those are secondary to the principal permitted use in those cases. It's also important to note that state alcoholic beverage control establishments does not regulate over-concentration of on-sale establishments in the same way that they regulate off-sale establishments, which, as was pointed out in an earlier item, we do have significant over-concentration of in some areas. So this item is presented for council discussion and direction to staff on whether to amend or remove the distance requirements currently applicable to bars in the downtown area. The staff report noted 3 potential alternatives, the first being take no action and leave the regulations in place. The second would be to the second one would be to direct staff to amend the downtown master plan to allow on-sale alcohol establishments, period, just remove the distance requirements altogether. Or 3, direct staff to amend the downtown master plan to create a set of criteria that would allow a certain number of bars within a geographic area of the downtown. Council is free to take one or none of those alternatives or come up with one of their own if they so choose. But we offer this item for discussion, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thanks very much. Any questions? Okay, not right off. Any speaker cards on this item?
There are no speaker cards, sir.
Okay, and my understanding is this, at this point, is just to discuss whether or not we send it back to the Planning Commission to have them bring us back more options.
Yes, staff would prepare something, and it would go to the Planning Commission first and then on to the City Council.
Do you need direction today? As
Yes,
to what?
please.
Okay, all right. Well, it's open for discussion. We'll start with Michelle.
Okay, we need to bring El Cajon up to 2024 and beyond. We need to look forward to making El Cajon maybe an entertainment district. We've got nothing for, say, 21 to 41 or 21 to 50. We've got the Magnolia. We don't have any entertainment. We've got a couple of dance clubs. Back in the 90s, back in the 80s, we used to have a lot. And those of us who have lived here a long time, there was Baxter's, there was Park Place. Go and listen to live music, have a drink, you meet up with your friends there. We have nothing anymore. You drive through downtown after dark, and it's like the sidewalks have rolled up. When are we going to start bringing more people in? And we've got to loosen up the code. So I think that loosening up, changing the zoning is a great idea. Tasting rooms are a great idea. I think we lost Creature Comfort. What was that place over by? Yeah, we lost that place. We need to bring something in. We can't bring anything new in as long as we say no alcohol. It's a fact. We cannot legislate people's behavior. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now, is that we've just become roll the sidewalks up at 8 o'clock, and that's it. So I really would like my colleagues to think hard, and let's start getting some more entertainment, some exciting things for people to go to, clubs for under 21, places to go for parents to go. Let's have a daycare center, and then, parents can go out and have a good time. We have our concerts in the park on Friday night, but that's only until it starts getting cold. And then what? We have the car shows, but not everybody wants to go to the car show. Until we get the mall reimagined, what else is there to do? I mean, okay, we can stay home and watch television, but we've got to start getting people out, and we need people to go out, shop. We've got to be able to have stores to go downtown and look through store windows and have shops that are open. I remember living in San Francisco and going to Union Square at night, and you could walk down and see the shops down there and see the stores, the dress shops and the different stores. Downtown San Diego, same place. We have nothing like that. Nobody wants to walk downtown now. What is there to look at? There's nothing really. So we need to bring something in. That's all I can say about
Gary.
that.
I think Council Member Mitchell makes really good points. I guess someone else thinks that too. And I don't drink alcohol, but I understand that's a big part of social interaction in the United States and pretty much all over the world. And 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been in favor of this because downtown El Cajon looked like Skid Row. And now it's a lot better. We got a lot more really nice establishments, and I don't think a homeless guy is going to go in and pay, I don't know, what does a beer cost, $8, $10 in a bar? I have no idea, but they're not going to pay that kind of money for it. So I'm in favor of sending this to staff to look it over. I think it's something that's reasonable. We need to compete with other cities. We need to get with the times, and maybe when people leave the Performing Arts Center, we got 1,200 people walking out of that place, many times a month, and they go, "Oh, what can we do in downtown?" Well, now they'll be able to go have some drinks. And
look at an art gallery.
yeah, and so that's one of the pieces of the puzzle, I think, that makes downtown a little more interesting. When my sons were in college and they wanted to go out someplace, downtown El Cajon just wasn't on the list, and just right down the road from me, they would go somewhere else. They'd go to Gaslamp. So this may be a start in going in that direction, because if Gaslamp can do it, why can't we? There's a lot of money, within 10 or 15 miles of downtown, and everybody that lives here would rather not have to drive all the way downtown, and Uber's a lot cheaper if you're just going a few miles rather than 18 miles to downtown San Diego. So I think this is a good way to go. I think it's reasonable, and let's go for it.
I ask a question: which comes first, the entertainment or the people who demand entertainments? You could say, do we have to wait for more housing and people who will demand entertainment options downtown, or do you create the entertainment options that will draw people downtown? I think we can create the entertainment options now. People may ask, can El Cajon support really kind of a bar concept that we're trying to find? And I think the answer is yes. It's just not downtown. Burning Beard Brewery over in the industrial area is a very successful brewery. The people who took over Junction 52 really took a very sleepy restaurant and turned it into a vibrant, packed, expanded venue. Even here along Main Street, Main Tap did a big remodel. So I think we can show that there is success in El Cajon for these kind of people. I have a couple of concerns that I think the Planning Commission should address, staff should address. The boundaries, as Mr. DiMaggio said, we don't want to necessarily look for this. Specific Plan 182 has very large boundaries, and we don't necessarily want one down by Primrose Street and Madison right next to the freeway. That doesn't really do anything for the downtown area. So I think the staff could come up with downtown boundaries. Number two, the number of establishments. It's easier to expand than it's hard to contract. It's easy to expand. It would be hard to go from 4 to 2 than it is to go from 2 to 4. So I'd suggest, hey, let's throw out a 2 and see, is there any interest in 2 people who want to do something downtown? I'm concerned if we throw it out to 4 or 6 that we may get people who aren't doing the spirit of the project. It just becomes, oh, this is a place to buy a building and park some money. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a Burning Beard Brewery owner. We're looking for a Junction 52 owner. We're looking for a Main Tap owner, somebody who would be aggressive in investing in a business. So I'd say start with 2. You can always expand if those 2 do great. That would be, and the boundaries, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. One of the problems, at least I think, with all the oversaturation of the liquor stores and alcohol sellers in town is I think it's probably reached a point where there's so many that they're just barely getting by. And when the kids come in, they go, well, I got to pay the rent. I better sell to these kids. And by having fewer, they're not going to have that issue. And again, if we have just 2 of them, we'll see how they do. And it's a kind of incentive for someone to open up a really classy place and not have to worry about excess competition from maybe some seamy places that that sell stuff super cheap and maybe sell stuff to people that shouldn't be buying it. So I agree with starting out with probably 2, but I'm open to suggestions from the Planning Commission, the staff. I mean, staff, they're the experts in this, and I trust their judgment.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree with the majority of my colleagues, I think that we can offer up a nightlife that is attractive. And the one thing I might push back on a little bit is when we look at a downtown area, let's look at La Mesa, how they revitalized their downtown. It was a sleepy downtown. It had a lot of antique shops. And I think that when you have as many nightlife-oriented establishments as possible, whether it's restaurants or bars, they all lift each other because it creates an environment and it creates an experience. It has a vibe to it. And so we want to create that experience. And to Steve's point, even when my wife and I have a date night, when we can find a babysitter, where does everybody go? We go west to go have a drink or have dinner. And we rarely look at reservations because not very many restaurants take them anymore, but we'll just go to a place, we'll park, and we'll walk, and we'll look at our options. And so I have a little bit of a concern doing a larger limit of how many establishments can be opened, just because a rising tide lifts all ships, so to speak. And I'm not but on the same side that you guys are saying, I don't want it to be just 50 main taps on one side of the road. That's not what we're looking for either. So to the commission, to the planning commission, I know Rebecca's back there, our chair. I think some way, shape, or form, I think the idea that I had is let's look at a downtown La Mesa or North Park and say what's the ratio of bars to all the other establishments or open ones, and say let's look at a healthy downtown area, and what does that look like with regard to ratio of bars only versus other establishments, and maybe craft a policy around successful models that we've seen across San Diego. Something like that might work.
See, I don't think it has to be all bars. I think you could if you could get Cafe Sevilla to put in a satellite place out here where you have tapas and flamenco dancers and stuff out here. If you could have a tasting room, if you could have a karaoke place, that's all they do is, drinks and karaoke. If you could have a dance place where it's just, dancing and drinks, whether it's alcohol or non-alcohol. If you had an under 21 place that, you had enough security and enough big mamas out there to keep those kids in line. They're fun. There was a place in North Park that used to be a lot of fun in the 70s. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be just bars, and it doesn't have to be just one type of place. I think we need to we don't need to limit. I think it just needs to be open, and we need to be open to the idea. The guy that came here, what was it, in March? The guy, what is it, New America that came here? Yeah. The guy that gave us the report, he had all these wonderful ideas. This is the first step to bringing some of those new ideas in, and I don't think we should be limiting ourselves. I think we should go in and say, okay, let's take that first step and be innovative and be bold about it.
Question I have for you, Vince, is once the city council kind of gives the green light on this, how much control can we keep of the process? Can we control the kind of places that come in, have a way to look at them all? I assume that each individual place has a.
Well, we're gonna require it would be by conditional use permit.
So, CUP.
That's right.
Yeah. Good. And so in that respect. If we're giving a conditional use permit per applicant, and we're not just giving a blank check, we can control the number to 1 or 2 or 5 or whatever we want to. I wouldn't want to do this if we didn't have control, because I remember back in 25 years ago, and things were pretty rough in downtown Cajon. I don't want to go back to that. I want to enhance what we're doing, but still maintain the where we've come from in the past. So, Vince, do you have enough information, or do you?
I believe I have enough information, and I think that we can bring back something that would represent everything that we heard.
Anybody want to put anything else into the mix before we give it back to them? Because they're going to take it to the Planning Commission and come back with us some recommendations.
Yeah, actually, a conditional use permit gives us a lot of control and safety. If someone's misbehaving, we can threaten to take away their conditional use permit. You know, if we catch them selling to people that are drunk or, you know, things like that.
There's also, you know, you can require a conditional use permit. You can add things to the downtown master plan that would allow the Planning Commission, when they consider the conditional use permit, to make a determination whether there's a, quote, over-concentration, whether there's a public convenience and necessity to the business being there. Those are safety valves that you could have in an amendment to the downtown master plan that doesn't require you to approve a specific number. Now, that's just an idea. Again, we can, when it gets to you, you can accept the number, alter the number, take out the number, but knowing the conditional use permit gives you a lot of latitude to make decisions, or the Planning Commission in this case.
I'd like the, oh, did I step
No,
on
you
someone's
continue,
toes
and
here?
then we'll go down the line. Everybody wants to talk.
I'd like, as part of the report, for us to look at places like that we want to be like. For instance, North Park, and I know their income's probably higher per capita than it is in El Cajon, and maybe, you know, Pacific Beach, you know, they had that beach vibe, so there's a lot of attraction there, but the people that go to the bars probably don't go into the ocean. So, you know, that's what I'm trying to achieve. That I was at North Park the other day. I had been there for a long time, and it was beautiful. I mean, a lot of really great stores that are well kept and painted, and, you know, great lighting, and those are the things, you know, like adequate lighting. That's one of the things we want. But I would like to see a report, see what the concentration is of these bars in places that we would like to emulate. A goal for us to be something like them.
So I think one of the things first is to identify the project area. Vince has already thought about some areas that could be identified as a project area, and then find similar areas to that and go, okay, that's about the same size as ours. How does it feel? How does it operate? We were just talking about downtown Escondido. In about a 4-block span, there's 4 bars. 1 block over, there's 2 more. It does, when I go there, it doesn't feel over concentrated, but it's also the types of establishments that are there. They're not all biker bars or seedy bars. They're upscale. They're more lounges. They're more microbreweries. And I think maybe those are some things we can control through the conditional use permit. But taking the information that you brought forward today, looking at some other successful downtown models, we can craft a recommendation, as Mr. DiMaggio indicated, for the Planning Commission consideration, and then we'll bring it back to you. But I think we have enough information, unless there's other data that you want to share with us.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, another thing is, I used to work up in San Marcos, and we had Restaurant Row there. And a bunch of us from work would go out to go, okay, let's just go down Restaurant Row and figure out where we want to eat, because we know there's going to be something that's not too crowded. There's all sorts of different types of food. That's what my vision is for downtown El Cajon. It's, you know, along Main Street, is people that live in the city and outside the city and in Alpine, because they're going to be passing through El Cajon on their way to wherever, that they go, you know, let's stop on Main Street. We'll walk along there, and there's probably going to be some restaurant or some bar that we know we'll find something. Kind of like going into the food court in the mall with my kids, and they all, you know, 3 of them want different things, and it's all right there. And that's the kind of thing I want for downtown. You know you're going to get entertained down there and have a good time, rather than to walk by a bunch of closed stores.
Vince, you asked if there's anything I'd like to add into the mix. Just to think about some of the coolest places I've been, for lack of a better term, were in what used to be an empty warehouse in a commercial industrial area. Some of these microbreweries. I'm thinking over by Sports Arena off the 5, you can see it. There's nothing else around except for that. So I don't want us to be limited for some young up-and-coming brewery sees some underutilized area and can just totally transform it, and then all of a sudden that's a hub. So I don't want to limit. I don't want the city in my personal stuffiness to limit the creativeness of some people out there, because there's a lot more creative people out there than me, and they might have better vision about how to improve an area than I do. And so that would be my cautionary tale, similar to what Michelle was saying. Let's not limit things. Let's just see what they can do. And then I'd like to, I don't know if this is part of it, but I'd like to see the PBID board or something get involved in some way, shape, or form to get these, to show the industry, hey, we're making moves to open up our downtown. We're open for business. Let's get some other people in here. So I'd like to see if that could be part of this, I'd like to see more involvement from the PBID to recruit and bring in good businesses into downtown.
Okay, let me ramble on for just 15 more seconds. I think we all know somebody who owns a restaurant, some sort of contact, a bar, or some sort of entertainment place that we've been to. We've made those places, and maybe if we just put a bug in their ear and say, hey, have you thought about expanding? And if you have, El Cajon's looking for new and exciting new places. Put that bug in their ear. I know I'm going to contact my caterer friend and see if he knows how to get a hold of the guy who owns Cafe Sevilla. Can you imagine a place that does tapas and flamenco dancing out here in El Cajon? That'd be cool. Or, just anything. But if we all come together on this and we all put our little thinking caps on and we don't limit ourselves to what we want to see here, I know Mr. Berg knows a lot of people in the industry. We need to get him to start, searching out his contacts. And Mr. Ortiz says, the PBED. And then maybe the chamber, the San Diego chamber, Jerry Sanders group. See if they know somebody. Somebody's got a connection somewhere. And if we just put all of our little connections together, I'm sure somebody would be willing to step up and go, hey, I got the right guy. I got a guy for you. So I think this is my final contribution to this. Let's try and make this happen. It doesn't have to happen in the next 6 months, but I think if we can work on it and make the first initial steps, we can do this.
Okay, so you're set?
I am, thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, there are no commissioner reports on today's agenda. Item 14 is my activity reports, and we're at council member reports. Mr. Goebel.
As reported, and the Copper Line launched successfully on September 29th. There you will now see a one-car train going to and from Santee every 15 minutes, and everything is running smoothly, and they're making adjustments as needed to timing of lights and things like that.
Fantastic. Mr. Kendrick?
As reported.
Mr. Ortiz?
As reported.
Ms. Mitchell?
As reported, with one addition, I did go to the East County Economic Development Council this morning. I also toured a new sober living facility in Lakeside, and they're hoping to open a women's facility. I'm not sure if it's going to be in El Cajon or Lakeside, but we can really use new facilities, and they're looking to open a women and children's facility. So stay tuned for that, because we need more facilities for those who need more help. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. There are no joint council member reports. There are no first or readings of ordinances and no closed session items on today's agenda. So that brings us to adjournment of the regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, Housing Authority successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 8th day of October 2024, is adjourned until Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024 at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you all very much.